Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Chad Harberts Show, powered by the Sports Guys Iowa Network. Happy to be joined now by my boss, Jim Nelson, who has been covering high school sports in that market for how long now? Is it 40 years?
It'll be 40 years this July. Yep.
Be 40 years. You were doing this back in high school, right?
Yeah. Heading into my senior in high school, I started as a part-timer at the Waterloo United High School Courier.
Because we're talking about consolidation and it's coming for the big cities now. Let's talk about your history a little bit. You are a Waterloo West grad.
Yes, correct. 1987.
Waterloo West grad who went to Kirkwood, went to Northern Iowa. So you've been around this market the entire time. This was your Falls market. And the end of your high school career is when the slide starts with the closing of Central. But we really don't know it's a slide at the time. It's just we're closing the school that was open for 16, 18 years. But Waterloo is still pretty much thriving in the late 80s.
Yeah, it was. It's still a pretty major town at that time. And people still say that too now. But back then, John Deere in the mid 80s, early 80s, they were still the prominent, probably more than 50% of the residents had some kind of connection to John Deere. Then the farm crisis came. My senior year, John Deere was on a long strike. The workers were on a strike. And they began to cut down on the workforce a little bit. And my history of that is not great. But at that time, there's probably more than 10,000 John Deere workers. And now there's not nearly that many John Deere workers. So the blue-collar town that this is was starting to shrink a little bit, for sure.
So Waterloo goes on this very gradual slide. It's taken 40 or 50 years. But one of the first dominoes to fall, obviously, is Central High School closing, which they just opened 72 or 74?
Yes, early in the 70s, they closed Waterloo Orange High School, which was the rural Waterloo Orange, was the rural high school where a lot of the farm kids went. And they opened a brand new school, a Central there, where the football stadium is. And that was a high school, I think, from 72 to 88. I should chat GPT that up for you.
I think you're right. I think it was 16 years. And that high school, which, again, had been around for a while as Orange, but as a new high school, Central, it only lasts 16 years. And that's the first domino that falls. But the closing of schools, the shrinking of the population continues to now where we're just a couple of years away from Waterloo East and Waterloo West merging in 2028, 2029. And for a guy like you that graduated from West, who's covered some of the great things that have happened at West and East, obviously, over the years. What's your first thoughts of the fact that you're going to be one program in 2 years?
There's a lot of thoughts, but you just think about all the history. They played more than 100 football games against East and West. I think that from a sports standpoint, it's one of the oldest rivalries in the state of Iowa. I think of all that history that's going to go by, all that wrestling history. Yeah, they're going to create new history, but how much is that going to be retained from 50 years from now? Yeah, I remember the good days. When I was in high school, we played for the state basketball championship and we played for the state football championship, which none of our high schools have done in a while. Not since East won, I think, a state boys basketball title. And I'm trying to think back, Mike Henderson was, and that might be the 90s. Yeah. So it's been a while since we've played in a state title game. The Waterloo West girls have played in a couple of girls' state basketball titles, but it's been a long time. You think about all that history, and that's where I think about it. Now, it's a surreal thing that there's only going to be one high school. There's always been East and there's always been West, and it's been forever. And that's what I grew up with, and that's what I've known, and it's what I've known my whole professional life too. So it's weird just having one school.
And that's the biggest concern is you start talking about Dan Gable. You start talking about Roger Kittleson. You start talking about an East program that was at one time the premier high school football program in the state. They won 56 consecutive games, which has never been beaten. You talk about what Gable did at West. You talk about some of these great athletes at East and West over the years. And when the schools merge from a state association standpoint and from a realistic standpoint, those schools no longer exist, which means those records are archived, but they really no longer exist either. And you can't erase the history of Dan Gable. You can't erase the history of Waterloo East football, but it also ceases to exist. And that is surreal when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. When you think about the greatest athletes, Reggie Roby, you think about Don Perkins, who's on the Ring of Fame with the Dallas Cowboys. Bruce Perkins, that played at Waterloo Central, was another former pro athlete. When you think of all the wrestlers, a lot of wrestlers that come through. And I'm missing some big ones. I think Scott McAdam was a swimmer at Waterloo West that was on an Olympic team. You think about a lot of just the great athletes. And
Chris Gaines was Mr. Iowa basketball one year.
he was the first African American Mr. Basketball in
Right.
1986. Yeah.
And just, I know the school district has talked about, we have a plan to preserve those records, and maybe they do, but you and I are in the media business. We associate with these schools on an almost daily basis. I don't see the central records anywhere. Maybe they're kept over at Central High School somewhere. You've said some of the trophies are still in the trophy case, but you think about these Hall of Fames, and you think about Siddons Gymnasium, which I'm sure will still be called Siddons Gymnasium, but they're not going to play or wrestle in there anymore. They're going to be in a new building, in a new site. And so even some of that gets a little bit diminished.
Yeah, I have a lot of fond memories when I went to school there because we played a lot of big games there, and there's a lot of huge wrestling meets that were wrestled there. That variation of the West High is newer too, so I don't know how much the wrestling went down there. I wish, off the top of my head, I can't think of how long that school has been at that location. It used to be over by where Sloan Stadium is, which they tore down about 4 or 5 years ago. That's just gone. It's a park now. They tore it down for more playground area for the elementary school that they built at what used to be West High, and then it was West Junior High. And people probably don't even remember Sloan Wallace right now because it's been gone for several years. So it's one of those things. There's going to be athletic events held in there. The junior high, they'll become 8, 9. So there'll be a lot of junior high events there. Yeah, you think of all the great teams that have played there, and yeah, that all goes by.
Well, and the question that you and I can't answer, somebody at the school district needs to answer is, do you take those statues that are in the lobby of West, that wrestling shrine they have right up there in front, do you take that out and stick it in Waterloo United, or do you leave it at West where it, over time, it's going to be forgotten? It's going to be seen by, yeah, some 14-year-old kids and their parents, but it's not the same impact as when you walk in there right now for a basketball game in the wintertime or for any other reason to walk into West High School.
You just asked me a question there, basically. You did ask me a question, but I had forgot, and I didn't forget about the statue because you see it when you walk into Siddons Gymnasium. But what are they going to do with the Dan Gable statue? I mean, that's a big, huge part of that. Something they've really put a lot of pride into. Is that going to stay there? Are they going to move that over to Waterloo United? It's connected with there. You're 30 paces from the stairs that lead down to the wrestling room from where that statue is. So I'm assuming it's going to stay there. But man, you'd really some of the great athletes that you've had come through those two schools. I think it would be neat wherever the new gymnasium is going to be to have those there. Maybe there should be a Reggie Roby statue outside the football stadium and with Gable, and then some of the other great athletes that we've had. So
they do have a little bit there at the football stadium. There is that wall there as you're walking in, and they've got, those are guys that went to the pros, right? There's 4 or 5 guys that played professional football, but none of them played in that stadium. They didn't play there. They played somewhere else, but it is at least there. Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe they do some kind of plaza at Memorial Stadium with some more stuff, with this high school stuff that needs to go somewhere. But I'm thinking just you go into East Gym and that hallway before you walk in the gymnasium, that's where they have their whole Hall of Fame stuff. And they've got all those old trophies. And I think about West Gym, and I'm thinking about all the banners hanging up on the wall. They go way back to, they got a state championship in what, 1925 and something.
Boys basketball. Yep.
Yeah. And that stuff, you can't shove it in a closet, but you can't also probably put it in Waterloo United's gym because Waterloo United's going to have their own record. So I've been fortunate enough. Grundy Center High School, where I live, where I went to, where I graduated from, is the same as it was 50 years ago. They've changed the school, they've modified, they've remodeled, things, but all those records are still there. All those trophies are still there. They go back all these years. And for these schools that merge, and we're talking about way more than Waterloo East, Waterloo West. We're talking about Atherton Parkersburg. We're talking about Gladbrook Randwick. We're talking about every school that's merged. Waverly Shell Rock. What happens to that stuff, and how do we preserve that history of, there were some great athletes in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. There were some great 6-on-6 athletes that their history has been buried now. It's just, I guess it's you and I talk about, we're old guys thinking about the past. It's what I think about it is there were some great athletes that came before us.
Yeah, there was. And everything, this Waterloo United thing, I think is gonna be great for the students. It's gonna be great for Waterloo. I'm not against it. It's just, I think from a sports perspective and how you're gonna honor those and what's going away and all that, the rivalry. And I think rivalries are good. It's brings the best out of kids once or twice a year. It brings out some worse of the fans. We know that. But I think there's probably a majority of people aren't from Waterloo, or at least if you go through Waterloo East and Waterloo West right now and say, did you know what there was a high school here named Waterloo Orange?
They don't know. Right.
They don't know because that high school's been torn down. They built a new elementary school out there. Yeah.
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 And this is coming. This has largely been a rural issue for the last 100 years, but now it's coming to the cities. Cedar Rapids is certainly going to shut down one of their 3 high schools in the next few years. We both know because we cover sports so much that the Des Moines schools model of 5 high schools, 5 separate athletic programs is not sustainable. At some point, something's going to happen there. They're already doing some co-op programs in some of those schools, but that's not sustainable. So now this issue that the cities have largely ignored for 100 years is right at their doorstep. It's crazy. And you think about, you played against those Cedar Rapids schools, you played against Des Moines schools. It's crazy to think that, and after Iowa's rich history of high school sports, it's now coming right to their places.
Yeah. Actually, I played a few Cedar Rapids schools and some, but we are still back in the old Big Eight then, which they've refigured with the Iowa Alliance Conference. But we would play Cedar Rapids schools quite frequently when I played baseball. And we occasionally played a Des Moines school if it was in a tournament. But yeah, it's right here now. It's what's coming. The schools, there's so many private schools too now. That's a factor too. But even if you see that, Waterloo Columbus back when I was in school was a 3A school. They're a 1A school now.
Right.
And yeah, if you look back, we didn't have Cedar Valley Christian now. That was Walnut Ridge, and it was a very small high school. We didn't have Valley Lutheran where some students going to. So there's 2 additional. I guess we lost NU High. That was in Cedar Falls. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we just go across the metro. When in the 80s, when we were both in high school, you at West and me at Grundy Center, NU High was in our conference and the NICL, and they were a pretty solid program in a lot of sports. When I moved away for a long time, and you and I would talk still all the time because we've been friends for 30 some years. When you told me NU High was closing, I'm like, what do you, how could NU High be closing? That was a 2A school with a very rich athletic program.
Yeah. And that was another university thing. When they did that, you just look at, I go back, I just look at the history of it, and I hope they can honor it somehow. But again, I think the reality is, as much as we care, in 30 years, those kids aren't going to remember the East and the West days. That's sad because there was a lot of great history. And us as sports writers, we love that stuff. Yeah.
And you're right. There is some, even at my level, for 100 years, Grundy Center and Rhinebeck, and even Glenbrook Rhinebeck were big rivals who now can no longer play in football because GR plays 8-man and Grundy Center still either in Class A or 1A most years. So you do lose some rivalries, and that's not Grundy Center and Glenbrook Rhinebeck, not nearly the rivalry that West and East are just because of the market sizes. But you do lose some rivals for sure. But I guess the thing I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around, because I've been in the rural school district for so long, is you just never thought it would come for the cities. And yet here NU High going away, when Central went away, it's okay. Central went away, but we don't have that 80-year history with Central. We have a 16-year history with Central. With East and West, you're talking about schools that have been around for so long. West has got to be,
they're both
100 years old.
Century. Yeah, they're both over 100 years old.
And East is way older than West.
Yeah.
Just when it starts coming for the schools that have been around for 100, 130 years in a metropolitan area, you think it's never going to happen. And here it is. That's the hard part that I'm coming to terms with is, wow, this is real when it's coming to schools that size. Yeah.
It's a heavy weight on the current superintendent's job. He's wiping away 200 years of history to build a new school. I think to be for better Waterloo, let's say that, but that's got to be heavy on him and the people who got on board with it. It's got to be heavy. And that all started to, and this is a thing for me, we used to have all those auto shop and all that stuff and the thing, and they built this career center out at Central, which is out on the edge of town. along quite a bit of ways from east and a little bit of ways from west.
Right.
And that all these kids they had to transport it. So they built this career center out there, and these programs they took away, automotives and all this that they took out of the high schools, they brought back.
Right.
Now the kids got to drive across town to go to it, which I'm thinking it was, I guess, my
Life
argument here is-
skills programs. Life
Yeah.
skills programs, so important.
and they took them out. They don't have shop in junior high anymore. Where I'm sure you took shop in junior high, I took shop in junior high. We learned
Yeah.
woodworking. They don't have that anymore. They don't have that, but now they do have it at the career center. I'm wondering, was there a way to take the money they're spent to build this new high school and not take, if that's the 150 million they're spending or 200 million, could we not have put 100 million into each of these schools and built those kind of programs there where the kids don't have to transport anywhere? But they've already spent millions of dollars now at this career center. They're already down that path. Only way I think they were pigeonholed into this is if we're going to do something and we're going to spend a lot of money, we're going to build a new high school. And that's where they went. But to me, is you took those programs away, you brought them back without thinking about the transportation.
You and I can both get on our days where we're just old men shouting at the clouds.
And that's what I just did there.
We both get that way, but I know what an unbelievable Waterloo loyalist you are. You love Waterloo. You have been away very few years, even in your professional career, and you've had opportunities to not live in Waterloo since you came back, and you've never taken them. You've always stayed loyal to Waterloo. So I think about a guy like you who's been such a Waterloo loyalist his entire life, and your parents still live there, and to see this continue decline, and it's gradual. It's gradual decline of the city, and now the school system even more. It's a little bit sad.
Yeah, it's sad. It's unfortunate. But what we're going to do, you and I are going to do when this school comes around, we're going to cover Waterloo United. It's been around. It's going to be number one priority. We're going to be on board. That's what we love doing. We love writing stories about our local kids, and that never changes for us. For us, we're going to be the old guys here complaining about the loss of the history and the rivalries. And that's why we're doing this podcast. And we're airing out our grievances. But where's the poll? We passed Festivus already. We've got our poll out. We're standing next to it, and we're airing out our grievances.
Shouting our grievances.
Yeah.
But Jimmy, I appreciate your time. I know it's opening day. You got the Reds gear already on.
I'm ready. 3:00 against the Red Sox.
Good this year.
They're going to be good. They're going to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. I'm predicting it right now.
All right.
So when I'm crying in late August when they're out of the race, you just remind me of that statement.
You know what? I wish there's a time when I loved baseball like you did. There was a time we went on a baseball trip way back in the 90s, but the Angels have been so bad for so many years now. And I just can't get excited for opening day like I used to. And I guess, again, it's just me being an old man, but I'm like, I used to be just as jazzed for opening day as you are, and I haven't been that way for 20 years now.
Yeah. No, I love opening day. It's great. That's why I'm working from home today. I'm going to have this TV on here pretty soon at noon. There's a game on, and I'll be working with the TV on the background.
All right, Jimmy, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
You bet, Chad.
All right, take care.
Bye.
So there you go. It's coming to the big cities. Consolidation is coming. School mergers are coming. We know of Waterloo East and Waterloo West. It's coming in 28, 29. They're still working through a lot of details athletically, including how they're going to merge the two football programs in the middle of the state's 2-year cycle as far as how they do districts. So that'll be interesting, but it's been coming for a long time, and now it's coming to Waterloo. It's coming to Cedar Rapids. It's going to come to Des Moines at some point. We don't know what's going to happen there, but certainly over the next few years, you're going to see Cedar Rapids lose a high school. You're going to see Des Moines. I don't know if they'll lose a high school, but I think certainly they will merge some programs. I've even heard people talk about how we should just take all 5 programs athletically and put them together into one big athletics program again. I think that's a little extreme, but the way the people are leaving Des Moines and moving towards the Waukees and the Johnstons and the Ankeneys and those kind of places, the current model for the Des Moines schools, it's not sustainable either. It's just not. This is what's happening. The population is either shrinking or it is moving. And either way, it's affecting what's happening with the metropolitan schools like it has with the rural schools for over 100 years. So thanks for tuning in to the Chad Harberts Show here on the Sports Guys Iowa Network. I appreciate it so much. We'll catch you next week.